Recording?
Now we're recording.
Hello, welcome. It's Thursday. You have 1 day left. You guys excited? Yay! My name is Dana Brunson. No, her name is Dana Brunson. I'm Dan Moss. We get confused sometimes. We wear the same colors, and we do plan this. We have calls at night to make sure, we have good, what do you call it, non-conflicting wardrobes and speaking talk, because Dirk has taught us so. And so we have a panel today. We had our first cimilieu2 on Tuesday with Dana. She introduced the different types of organizations that give you resources. Now we're going to introduce you to organizations that you can be part of and then do really cool stuff. So we have 5 panel members. Dana's here in person. We have Sarvani out there in remote land from University of California at Mercer. Bob Freeman from Harvard. Sandra Gessing from, I think she's in somewhere in Europe right now, hopefully not in the middle of the night. Neil Bright from Georgia Institute of Technology. Dana will lead us off, and if you have any short questions while they're talking, you can ask them. If not, we're going to have, at the end, time for questions. We're going to think of things like how to become part of the panel, what type of members are there, how much time, effort you have to commit to it, what do they meet, and does it cost anything? So Dana is first, and I'll hand it over to you.
So I get like 30 minutes, right?
You get the entire time you want. Right, here you go.
Wait, where's my slides go?
You being greedy, Dana?
Yes, I am being greedy.
That's right. Stand your ground.
Do you want to view presentation?
Okay, you ready? So as you've probably heard by now, I've been at Internet2 for about 125 days, so I got this whole new title slide. Appreciate it. They have artists. So just kind of who I am really quickly. I was born and raised in Oklahoma, went to undergrad and master's, OSU, Texas PhD. There's a little fuzzy area around there where I had children. And then in despair, I started the High Performance Computing Center at Oklahoma State in 2007 and did that through January of this year. And meanwhile, Henry and I met 2 weeks on the job, did this one Okie thing that's super awesome. And then GPN, there's James, and been working with that group forever, and that's a lot of fun. And then Campus Champions, which I'm going to talk about, and CARC that I'm going to talk about. I'm also involved a little bit in Trusted CI, so all of these things started and continue on. Well, I'm emeritus for those 2. And now Internet2, where I get to do this stuff, as my first job, which is a lot of fun. So Campus Champions. So this is funded by National Science Foundation, an Exceed project, which you've heard about already. And it's also sponsoring a lot of your travel here for this workshop. And there's a picture of us. So this is basically all our peeps, right? And so this is the biggest breadth organization. It's completely free. We still have a few gaps on the map. So if you live anywhere right here, I especially want to talk to you. But this is basically what we do in this workshop a lot, but over the whole year, via email, share these kinds of things. And you can see the numbers there. We're almost 600. This started with the predecessor to Exceed, which is TerraGrid. It really started as like campus liaisons to push users up to Exceed resources. But as soon as you got a bunch of us in a room together, we started talking about all the things we can do together. The big push this for the course of Exceed 2 that goes through 2021 is to make sure that our community survives, or at least this way of communicating with each other survives beyond that NSF funding. So sustainability, the dirty word. So just to show the point here, don't feel behind, right? Look how small the group was and how much it's grown. To me, this indicates how valued the community of research facilitators has become. Like I said, when we showed up and everybody introduced themselves, people actually called themselves research computing facilitators. people didn't start calling themselves that till like this year, I think, right? It was all just like, we all started doing stuff, and then it was like, we should name ourselves something. So just to give you a taste, so this is an analysis of the last year's email list, the longest thread. So, you know, whether you use VPN access on your cluster, had 65 messages in it. ARM, you know, all sorts of stuff, just talking about everything to do with research computing. Lots of messages, but not too many. And unique senders is 316. So it's not just the same 5 people talking all the time. I'm, you know, sure, it's mostly Henry, but other than that, we do have other people. This is our synchronous meetings. We have a leadership team. Tuesdays, we have kind of agendaless community chats to talk about whatever hot topics are going on. Third Tuesday is kind of our business meeting with the guest speaker. We have a sustainability working group, and then tech talks that we bring in speakers on whatever the community wants to hear about. So I can't think of examples right now. And we like to use our participant support funds. We have money from Exceed NSF to pay people's travel. What are you doing?
I've not been this year. Saying hi to myself.
All right. You're gonna use up my time. So what we really also like to do is help the champions get to meetings to talk to each other face to face, right? Because a lot of this is relationship building. One of the stories I used to tell when I first started, and I didn't, you know, I couldn't even spell HPC, but I could Google stuff, and I was Googling and I got 0 hits. And I don't know if you know this, I'm an introvert, and I was just terrified that I was going to go have to talk to a person to find out what to do. So this community is kind of, you know, brought me out of my shell, and it's done a lot for a lot of people in our community. Here's what we look like on Zoom. So if you saw the video, 2018, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and to do that, we, with the help of Exceed, has an external evaluation group who gets IRB approval, which you all know about now. And so we surveyed the champions, and we really wanted to find out like more about them and what we could do. So you probably heard these researcher-facing, system-facing terms now, so we asked them that. And this is their primary and what sorts of institutions. So it's not just, you know, research and doctoral granting. We have all sorts of representation. And when we asked them to check all that apply, so, you know, many of you might also wear many hats. So you see that 73% of them, at least part of their hats, are researcher facing. And then it covers all these others as well, plus faculty and students, you know, especially at undergraduate institutions. Chances are the champion's going to be a faculty member rather than like a research computing staff, but they're super involved too. And this is how happy everyone is. I don't have time, so I'm not going to cover all that. We also had focus groups, and so a couple of these I think you might resonate with is like when I talk to the CS faculty in their ivory towers, I know exactly what the cutting edge is and can interact with them. You know, don't think I could survive without it. You know, they don't make fun of my dumb questions, all these kinds of things. So we've tried to keep this culture of helping everyone, and people are very, it's my favorite. Another one, high satisfaction. One of my favorites that I like to report back to the NSF is that not only is it improving, helping champions do their roles more effectively, but it's changing institutional research computing policies and helping in strategic talent recruitment on campuses. So they like to see that kind of stakeholder-facing change in our entire academic community. So there's where I was going to put the video, but it's not going to work. And that's champions. I did pretty good. Okay. And that was free. All you got to do is send an email and we'll get you signed up. So this is a campus research computing consortium. One of the comments I heard yesterday was that there's too many organizations. We have too much stuff. The ecosystem is just full of things, and how can anybody possibly keep track? I resonate with that because I agree. I spend too much time on meetings where we talk about the exact same thing, and it's like, why can't we all work together on that one problem? And so Campus Research Computing Consortium is kind of one of those that's evolved into tackling some of those problems. This started, so you've heard ACI-REF. Yes, raise your hand if you've heard ACI-REF. So that was, and you know what it is, it was like kind of developed the role of a facilitator. After that, a bunch of institutions said, I want to join too. So Jim Bottom and all these institutions got together and wrote it's an NSF Research Coordination Network grant. And we're going to develop this consortium, and it's going to be all high and mighty and have a charter and a mission and all of that stuff. So they spent maybe a year, kind of, I call it navel gazing. And then people got mad because that wasn't doing anything. So we kind of changed focus and started doing stuff. One of the things was a stakeholder survey of all of these people to find out what they really thought was important. What should this group who's going to work on stuff figure out what to do? And these are the answers. I'm going to just forget all of them except for workforce development and supporting facilitators and roles and career paths. And then, as you can see, they said workforce development and supporting facilitators are the two most important things. So one of the things that we have done is create this document. He's gonna drive me crazy. So we created a document that is on the website, free for everyone to use, that basically has paragraphs of why research computing is important to those people. So why is research and computing important to researchers? Why is it important to your vice president for research? Like when you're trying to get funding, you need to be able to say those words. And this document will help you talk to people whose goals may be slightly different than yours. Okay, so we're looking for feedback on that, and these are all living documents. Another thing we're working on is the idea of professionalization of this new field, right? So like I said, research facilitators didn't even exist 10 years ago, at least, you know, other than the ad hoc people around here and there. But now we'd like to be recognized for who we are. We'd like 12-year-olds to go Google, I want to be a research computing facilitator when I grow up. And so with this, we've been working with folks in HR departments across the country and social scientists who study organizations and how they become professions. You know, doctors and lawyers didn't used to be professions, but now they are. So there's an evolution that takes place from like a community of practice, like the champions, on up to having a professional society. And then when like the funding agencies ask us collectively, what does the next 10 years look like? We can come to a consensus and tell them, right? Because right now it's just many voices. But if we can learn to speak with one voice, or at least close to one, like the astronomers do, you know, then they'll give us a lot more money. That's the point. Okay, and then as far as like the zillions of groups doing everything and overlapping and sometimes competing, sometimes cooperating, the other thing we've done is start to bring together all the various communities together to try to talk to each other and have these people who are boundary spanners between them to like bridge those gaps so that we can make sure when we're working on the same subjects that we work together and not reinvent wheels, and then, you know, together we go far and all those nice words. Another thing with Internet2 and the other group is an idea of a research computing maturity model. So this is something that institutions can use as a self-assessment to see, like, do you have a researcher facing staff? Do you help researchers in, you know, all different subjects, or do you just focus on physics? Do you have a data center? Do you have people that can help with software development? And so we're actually working on this, and we're having a workshop at PERC and a workshop at EDUCAUSE to go through some of these and start developing it into something that people actually want to use. And so this is one of the ones that I co-chair as well. So this is somewhat similar to the Champions, but we've made it into these various tracks. And this is also free to join. Just go to CARC, sign up, and you can, if you want, you can sign up to any of these tracks. The calls are once a month, and there's an email list, but focused on each of the facings. And I'm running out of time. Oh, made it! Woohoo! So this is the plug. Come to PERC 19. So the plug for this is, if we are a professional society, this would be our annual meeting. So show up. That's it. Thank you. Ta-da. You drive. Good job. So that's a Henry classic of going through 30 slides in close to 10 minutes.
That was very good, Dana. All right, so Sarvani, are you online? Can you speak so we can test your audio?
Hi, hi Dan. Hi everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes. Now let's share your. Can you share your screen? And
That sounds great. Let me do that.
oh, let me unpin myself. Hey, now we see you.
There you go.
And there we go. Awesome. Okay. You are all the way up. Speak clearly, and we are good to go. And if who's monitoring Zoom land?
Hi everybody. I am Sarvani. I am WHPC Mentoring Program Director. In my day job, I am also a high performance computing administrator at University of California, Merced. Today, I am going to talk a little bit about Women in HPC, what it does, and what Women in HPC Mentoring Program does. So WHPC was created with the vision to educate and collaborate with the HPC community and encourage participation by providing knowledge, fellowship, and support to women and the organizations that employ them. How do you join Women in HPC? You log into womeninhpc.org, and individual membership is free. And if you want to start a chapter or affiliate a chapter, you can email Women in HPC, and they will get back to you. And WHPC mentoring program is the objective of mentoring program is it's a robust mentoring program. It connects women from around the world with mentorship and support that will help them achieve their full potential. This is mainly for early career professionals. It'll be a professionals network because there are many schemes for mentoring schemes and mentoring programs for students in universities. However, where appropriate, these mentoring program will also be open to students as well. If, for example, the host organization does not have an appropriate scheme for or HPC related mentor for students. How do you join this mentoring program? Just log into womeninhpc.org/mentoring, and there is information related to logging in, signing up to be a mentor or a mentee, and or both. Why should somebody be a mentor? It is to develop professional relationships, enhance peer recognition, and so you can use your experience and share them with new HPC professionals. And the benefits of being a mentee are you will receive an independent voice outside of your sphere of activity and receive impartial professional development advice and encouragement. So how does mentoring work in WHPC program? So there are each cohort is for 4 months of duration, and for this first cohort we have received 36 mentee responses and 24 mentor requests. So what we did is based on how closely the mentors and mentees are matched. Some of the mentees will will share a mentor. So there is it's a one-on-one interaction between the mentor and mentee, and sometimes the mentor takes up more than one mentee. And mentees will meet with their mentors bi-weekly, once every 2 weeks for 4 months, and but they may wish to continue their relationship after the 4 months, and they decide on when to stop their mentoring relationship. And the timeline within the cohort within the 4 months is going to be mentor and mentee surveys, so we can match them with the right mentors and or mentees. And mentor training webinar, we let them know the ground rules and how to be a great mentor and things like that. And for mentee training webinar, we address on issues like how to make the most of your mentoring experience. And during the 4-month program, we try to do the mentor matching and initial mentoring discussions. And within months 1 to 4, mentors and mentees will meet one-on-one with the mentoring calls. And we also have webinars on topics like how to write a resume or public speaking, or how to ask for a raise or a promotion. Some important concepts that are not very particularly discussed in a structured curriculum. So after the 4-month mentoring program, everybody will be receiving a survey to review their experiences in the program, and they also can sign up to be a mentor for the next cohort, so they can pass on what they have received from the cohort. Now, here's where you go to sign up and to be a mentor and a mentee. womeninhpc.org/mentoring. If there's any questions or concerns or feedback, we are always happy to address them. You can email me. My email address should be on the first slide. I'm not sure if Dan is sharing them with everybody, but just feel free to reach out, and we are happy to help. So if there are any questions, please let us know.
If you have a short question now, if not, we'll save the rest till the end. Any quick questions? Can men join the Women HPC?
Yes. We it's an open. Yes, men can join Women in HPC.
Well, good. All right. So thank you, and stay online, and we'll have questions at the end.
Perfect.
Over to Bob. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
See you. Can you sing a song and make sure your audio is good?
I don't think you want me to do that. That would not be a good idea.
All right. You guys hear me in the back? Is there volume? Okay. Online?
All right.
Jay, how's it sound?
Good so far.
All right.
All right. So everyone can see the slides okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thanks to Dan and the organization team for allowing me to present on behalf of the Carpentries, and to everyone in Zoom land in Eastern Time Zone and East. Good afternoon. The rest of you, good morning. So my name is Bob Freeman. I work at Harvard Business School. I'm actually the proxy today for Tracy Teal, who's the executive director for the Carpentries, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Carpentries and their fit into the CI ecosystem and how you can be a part of that. First off, I'm going to do a little quiz here for all those, and this really will only work for me, for those in Zoom land. raise your hand or say yes if you've participated in a software carpentry workshop.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, we have
One,
many
two.
hands.
All right, I'm getting a few there. So it's looking like it's a small fraction. That's interesting, unless people are a little idle. Okay, we'll go ahead and drop your hands. And I'm assuming I heard a number of yeses there in the audience. So, and then the next question is, how many people have actually taught or helped out with a carpentry's workshop?
We have 4 in-house in the room.
Okay. And about the same number, so this is great. Okay, we have a great. So this is a wonderful. I get to convert everybody here now. There seems to be a lot of people who have not participated either. So okay, so the Carpentries is now a merged consortium of the 3 divisions that had been there before: software carpentry, data carpentry, and library carpentry. And this is an open global community. Teaching researchers the skills to turn data into knowledge. And there's 3, if you will, facets to this: the curriculum, instructor training, and community. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Let me actually turn on my timer so I don't go over. So, you know, this has become important over the days that skills and perspectives to work with software and data are increasingly important. And really are the basis of a lot of the work that we do. And it's so easy to generate data these days, and research is so key and important on it that we really need to increase the computational component and competency for all of our researchers so they can be more effective in the work that they do. And it's really not just reports that are saying that people need to learn these skills, but the researchers themselves, engineers and others that really feel that these skills are either lacking or need some additional help to bring people to their fullest potential so that we can actually make use of all the data and increase our researcher productivity. So how do we scale these software skills as well as data production? So I'm going to talk about that in the context of the Carpentries. So the Carpentries has been around for, I think, a good 10 to 15 years. And I'll talk about the community aspect of it, but is really focused on building skills around programming and data science. And the Carpentries have been creating training in the gaps that are accessible, approachable, aligned, and applicable. And I won't go into these, but definitely look up some of Tracy Teal's previous discussions and presentations, because I think she and the Carpentries team have done a very thoughtful approach or way to actually approach this, the 3 A's that she has here. The workshops are peer-led, hands-on intensive workshops. They're either a half of a day all the way up to 2 to 2.5 days, and very flexible and modular. We have volunteer instructors, and the lessons are open and collaborative materials. These are all found on GitHub and use one of the CC BY licensing models. And the Carpentries have also been integral in creating and supporting community. And again, I'll talk about that in just a few moments. The Carpentries is a nonprofit organization that trains people in software development and data science skills, as I said, to effectively work better and for especially career development. And this is kind of an interesting development that's happened over the years, that universities now will look at people that have been involved in Carpentries training and running workshops, and we'll use that as another tool to determine competencies for recruiting for faculty positions. And many of the grad students and postdocs who've actually gone on to have faculty positions have found that to be incredibly helpful for their career portfolio. And again, building community and local capacity. And this is something I won't talk about, but something the Carpentries is very interested in, is building local capacity for teaching and learning the skills and perspectives, and really kind of the mindset and approach to running workshops and making people more successful in their research and data science. As I mentioned, there's a 3 forks, if you will, to the carpentries. There's software carpentry. The audience there is people who need to program more effectively. This is domain independent. The data carpentries is researchers who are dealing with significant data. They may not want to program per se, but they really are interested in learning what they can do, some basic tools for working with data, along with, from collecting data to QC, QA, to analysis and visualization. This does tend to be more domain specific. There's the ecologies and social science and GIS stuff that's out right now, the genomics. We have a pre 1.0 release, and I think in June we're getting involved, or we're about to release a 1.0 set of lesson materials, but those are out and available for people to use now already. And then library carpentries, the people in the library and information related roles, and this is also domain focused on collecting and information support and library information sciences. The workshops, as I mentioned, typically are 2 days, but I actually personally use a lot of the materials for half-day hands-on workshops here at Harvard, and it's active learning. And what we mean by active learning is that as a part of instructor training, you learn that based on the way that adults learn, that you really try to force no more than 12 pieces of information into someone's brain before you make them assimilate and integrate that information through hands-on exercises or peer-centered learning. And this is where the instructor stops talking, stops squawking, and then puts it back on the learners and has them go through a series of exercises or discussions or whatever it is to try and actually, as I said, integrate that information so they can move on to build on that for new learning. We use feedback from the learners throughout the entire workshop to set the pace, and also to go back and if the class didn't understand what was taught, then we go back and rewind and actually make sure that we bring everybody forward with us through the learning. The instructors are trained. There is instructor training that happens year-round, both online and in person. And the training is not training about the materials, but it's training on how adults learn, how to run a workshop, how to build materials, etc. And it really is, I have to say from my own perspective, game-changing, and it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but a little bit of life-changing. It really has taught me to rethink the way that I approach teaching and learning, and really has sort of changed my trajectory in how I work with learners and build materials and work with other instructors as well, and build community. And it is a friendly learning environment. I have to say, I've been involved in courses that one day is a carpentries-based training, another day is traditional-based training, and it's just night and day what the learning environments look like. Our workshops, there's over 1,600 instructors. These are all volunteer, grassroots. Again, many people come in as staff or grad students, and then as learners, and 39,000 learners, and then get enthused about the courses and then go through instructor training to be instructors. And we've had 1,700 workshops worldwide. And just a little wonderful graphic, but just show that aside from Antarctica and some parts in China and the Soviet Union, we've had, in Africa actually, there's been far-reaching for the carpentries workshops. And if you know of anybody in these areas, I think we'd really like to reach out there as well. So how do you get involved? Okay, so there's actually a number of ways. Volunteer, and that's the biggest way. Become an instructor or contribute to lessons. There's a mentoring program for instructors and instructor onboarding. There are discussion groups and community calls that happen, email lists, teaching at other institutions, and becoming a member organization. And there are a number of URLs I've included here to illustrate that. The Carpentries website is really thorough and wonderful about bringing that information. And I'll say also, this has really been one of the unintended consequences of building the training program, has been this growth of community. I think because people feel so invested as a volunteer and as an instructor and as a lesson developer, that there's really been this multiplicative effect. that you contribute your time and energy, and it's kind of infectious. You really get to participate and build this organization, and it really is somewhat decentralized with a backbone. Tracy and I were talking about this yesterday, a backbone of a maintainers group and a steering committee around the different lessons and domains, and that really helps steer the ship forward in a very positive and constructive and ever updating manner. And so it's a really a wonderful way to get at this, and also bringing this back. The other want, if you will, is to try to bring this back to member organizations and home institutions, that once you become an instructor, you can now hold these the workshops back at your own institutions, and then also mentor and help all the others at your own institution. I will say, just to be clear, that you do not have to be a trained instructor to use these materials. You only have to be a trained instructor to actually run an official carpentries workshop. And so, again, because the materials are open source and available for everyone to use, please do take advantage of that. So just to briefly on a couple of the points there, the instructor training program teaches educational pedagogy. It's teach generally as well for the carpentries workshop, over 1,000 volunteers in 6 different continents. There's also an opportunity here to be involved with the instructor development. Let's see. Instructors are generally active researchers, graduate students, postdocs, and research scientists who have computational skills, but sometimes they're struggling to learn on their own, or to figure out how to improve their teaching foo, if you will. The curriculum is open and collaborative, continual improvement, and up to date. Again, they're available online, public resource, and they're taught hundreds of times. Oftentimes after workshops also, there's a debrief. So we collect those comments and take those back and use those to reinvest in the materials to make those materials even better. The curriculum development process, there is a formal process or more formal process in terms of bringing new curriculum online. There's a lesson roadmap also that's on the Carpentries website. If you have an interest in developing new curriculum for your particular domain or favorite tool. So constantly the Carpentries and volunteers are identifying the needs for content, learning goals and objectives, and content development and assessment. I will put a little plug out there that I and Christina Koch and a few others who might be there at the virtual residency are involved in HPC carpentry. And this is something that has been ongoing off and on for a couple of years now. And we've had a little bit of a lull, but we're trying to get this going again. And if you're interested in that, there's a mailing list I can turn you towards a little bit later. So there are additional committees that you can get involved with: the lesson maintainers, lesson infrastructure. So those who can help out with the tech behind running all the lessons, the curriculum advisors, and assessment committee as well to help determine how well the curriculum is faring. And again, community mentoring, program instruction, discussion groups and community calls are available. We have email lists on the website for discussion, topic discussions, and then again, teaching at institutions. And I will go to say one important thing here that I have in bold is supporting people in their learning journey. So some people, who may be going to the workshops, spread the love, if you will. Just if you've been involved. Tell them how, support them. If they haven't been involved, get them involved or get them to some of the training, but just let people know that data science is for them. And other committees to support community are regional coordinators. There's a code of conduct community and a champions community as well. With that, I'll conclude my discussion. Just a great quote: if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Bob. And we'll take questions at the end. We're going to keep moving on. Sandra, what country and time zone are you in?
I'm in Germany. fitting to my German accent, yeah.
Wie geht's?
Sehr gut, und selbst?
uh, is there, okay, so let's get you, you're sharing.
I try to share, but I cannot because Bob still shares.
Can you stop sharing?
I'm trying to figure out how to unshare. Bear with me for a moment.
I don't know either, so.
I've lost my little control panel thingy.
Is it up at the top? Is the thing up at the
Or
very
click-
top just hover over it?
Can you click the
There
share
we go.
screen? You got it?
I got
Okay. Hey,
Hey, great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Sandra has the enviable task to go through like 17 different organizations that she's all involved with. So take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, so you see my slides?
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Yes. Yeah, you can go. Yeah, full screen.
So let's go on full screen mode. So yeah, I'm talking about organizations I'm involved with. The SGCI, ERSI, WISPI, UK RSE, and US RSE. And fantastic short, short abbreviations, but I also would like to give a short introduction only to sustainability for cyber infrastructure. You heard already about it. But since we will talk about these fantastic short names of, I want to go in just a short introduction on software infrastructure for sustained innovation, the program. NSF is funding, so how Dana said already, who are also supporting this workshop, and they went from SI2 programs to cyber infrastructure for sustained scientific innovation. And what you can see here is they fund elements, framework implementations, planning grants for community cyber infrastructure and community cyber infrastructure implementations. And I will talk about sustainability institutes, and these are excellence hubs. And when they're funded, they have free services. You can use as community, as an institution, as a project, and it's free. And you have the chance to influence the conceptualizations because they're looking always for input from the community. And the implementations we have at the moment on the institutes is the Science Gateways Community Institute I will talk about, the SGCI, the Molecular Science Software Institute, MOLSI, and there is since last year the IRIS Hub, the Institute for Research and Innovation in Software for High Energy Physics. I'm also involved in one of the conceptualizations, the US Research Software Sustainability Institute. Now you know why we have these short names. Nobody can pronounce that anymore. So ERSI is much nicer. And there's a Geospatial Institute. And we had a nice discussion yesterday in the chat about science gateways, whether science gateway creators might be facilitators or not. And so my definition for science gateway is that we need something to help with the increased complexity of research questions, hardware, software, but also lab instruments. And there's so much data volume and data formats. And I think that is exactly what facilitators are also concerned with. We need these end-to-end solutions for accessing data, software, computing services, and equipment. And so you see a little bit sad Einstein here in the middle. And we want, of course, to make him happy, if I could. We want him to make him happy with science gateways. And science gateways are really end-to-end solutions and not only GUIs. So that is a definition we are using. So it means the whole infrastructure from, for example, HPC up to the GUI, but maybe also workflows. So it has a lot of components. And about 77% of active Exceed users were already in the quarter of 2016 gateway users. That has still taken up, but not as steep anymore as you can see it in this graphics. So this, yeah, the one who created this graphic said, oh, ITASA and Cyprus, these two science gateways broke my graphic, but in a good way. So there were a lot of users taking up and Exceed. And if we look at the Science Gateways Community Institute, it has for 5 different areas. One is an incubator, so you can get advice on sustainability questions, on usability, on cybersecurity and other. It's short-term support. So for example, if you have at the project, you need someone who looks at the usability of your solution, you can get someone who gives the advice, helps you to implement it. Or the extended developer support is up to 1 year developer time you can get for a project to develop a solution for you. If you have, for example, you have a command line tool and would like to build a science gateway out of it. Or the Scientific Software Collaborative offers a lot of different building blocks for science gateways, but also like a catalog where you can look for different science gateways which are already existing. And then you can pick them. We have old systems now in the catalog. We have the community engagement and exchange area. So like I'm giving the talk here, but we have also a webinar series, a monthly one. We have a Google Scholar feed, we have case studies, we have an annual conference that is coming up in September. We write blog posts, but we also ask anyone in the community if you have a related topic, you can write a guest blog post. We have workforce developments, this area, and you can enroll a student in an internship program. And we will launch a new program at PERC 19. So I second Dana, please come to PERC 19. And we will launch the program, The Gateway Ambassadors. And it's around community building and building gateway groups for institutions and consortia. The idea is similar to Campus Champions, but focusing really on the aspect of gateways, how to provide a usable, maybe web solution on campuses. So please, and yeah, look at the goals. Collaborations make challenges really less steep. So that is the motto. And if you want to connect with us, there's an incubator sustainability bootcamp, a half-yearly one. And it's also a very hands-on 5-day-long bootcamp. And it has totally different topics from a lot of other courses. It's, for example, you can bring your project with you and then you can do a napkin drawing. And you don't have to be an artist. It's more about really formulating your idea, being able to talk to your stakeholders, being able to look at what is your community. Do you have maybe a niche where you can target communities to get a bigger community to use your science gateway? Or work with us for the consulting services. You can come the yearly conference, or you can become a partner affiliate. We have the catalog, as I said, we have training for students, and we launched the ambassador program. So it doesn't cost anything to join. The community itself. So we have, for example, in the newsletter, it's sent out to over 2,000 people now. We have Twitter, so you can apply for the services and you can get really resources or just connect to hear more about science gateways and solutions, for example, on HPC, different programs. So that's the SGCI. If you look at research software in general, so there was a survey, and in the US, 95% of the researchers said that they would use research software for the research, and even 63 said they couldn't do it without. And the UK numbers are very similar. But there's not really formal nor informal training. Therefore, also this virtual residency is so successful because it gives one aspect, or many aspects also in HPC. It gives you some training, but there's also lack of career paths. That was Dana also said. So nobody didn't know how to call themselves. And in the UK, it's now the research software engineers are often, if it comes really to research software, that is a title that became very popular and a big community, and I will talk with them about it. We'll talk about them. And there's also, yeah, a lack of how to cite software. So the goal is to really achieve software sustainability. There's a software sustainability in the UK, and they defined it as sustainability means that the software you use today will be available and continue to be improved and supported in the future. That is exactly what we want. We want that research software can be used in 5 years, or we have the case that it doesn't need to be maintained anymore, but there should be the choice. So the conceptualization of ERSI is ongoing now for over 1.5 years. And we had a couple of workshops to gather the requirements from the community. We had a software credit workshop, what could we do in this area, an incubator workshop, and we will have a winter school in December. So if anyone is interested to hear or to build the conceptualization with it, because we hope, of course, that we can write the implementation grant. We did a survey we got over 1,000 answers. We are working on the analysis at the moment. We did ethnographic studies. We will also publish the results soon. And we have a mission and vision working group. So the straw horse is at the moment that we want to have 5 areas: a development support area, an incubator, training, courses and guides. And we are also working closely with the carpentries together, with Tracy Teedle and his team and Bob. And we want to work on policies for research and campaigns, and of course the community area. And you can connect on the website. There are different materials, blog posts, the mailing list. We have a discussion, we have Twitter, and with the workshops you can look at the results and look how the winter school will look like. WISPY is working towards sustainable software for science, practice, and experience. And these are workshops going on since 2013. And I was a co-organizer of some of them. And we always try to have working groups building during the workshop and have really topics we can work on, that we have some results. These workshops are between 1 to 3 days. And we also try to have working groups working beyond the workshops together. Some part was working out, but it's sometimes harder to get the working groups really also continuously working. So we have this mixture that we might work together with CARC, or we consider to join forces with other organizations. One part is also that we consider maybe to organize WISPY-related workshops via ERSI, because it's very similar with the software sustainability topic. But here you can also connect to the mailing list. You can look at Twitter, on Slack. There's a Facebook page. And WISPY is at the moment in this phase, where people are discussing, should we continue the way we did it with the workshops, or should we maybe really go together with other workshop series? In the UK, there's a Research Software Engineer Association. And this is what I shortly already mentioned, that the UK, they already managed really very successful to have research software engineers as a profession at the universities. And the Software Sustainability Institute in the UK was funded and founded 10 years ago. And they were one of the main drivers also of this RSE association. And they are now officially accepted as a society in the UK. And they have their RSE conference, the 4th one this year. There's a mailing list, there's a Slack channel, and there's really a lot of outreach in this area. And they managed to have also different programs. Like in the UK, you could apply to be one of their fellows, to be integrated in projects, or to be really for 1 year to have a job position where you are working at different universities. So there are yeah, collaborating worldwide, but really the fellows, I think, have to be in the UK. So what we want to do in the US is something similar. So this started last year. Last year I was at the meeting in the UK of international leaders for the RSE community. So we created a Slack channel and we have now some momentum. We have an upcoming email list, we have a website. So it has grown to over 50 people in the last 3 months. I know after the other numbers you heard already, this doesn't sound so impressive, but it's great for us that there's some uptake. And we meet now in bi-weekly calls with a steering committee. And we will try to have much more community-driven actions. And soon there will be monthly community calls. And we have BOFs at PERC 19. So please come to PERC 19 and at SC 19. So this is really just building up at the moment. And one of the ideas is to help people to exchange questions about technology, to know, even if you're not your title is not a research software engineer, but you are somehow in the institution, yeah, responsible for developing research software, and you fit in this group, please join us. So we are building this up to make this really a nice community where people can exchange ideas. Any questions I can take at the end, probably? I think there's another speaker.
Yes.
And thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Yeah, we have one more speaker, and then we'll take a field of questions. Neil, are you ready to share your screen?
Yes, I am here.
All right. There's
Okay?
Neil. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So just in case it happens, there's a couple of ropes behind me. It's either a SWAT team or window washers. My money's on the window washers, but you know, just in case. All right, so here we go. So I am representing, let's see, can you see that? All right, that looks good. So I've got two hats here today. The first one is Vice Chair of CASC. And for those of you that were at the CARC workshop, this will look very familiar. CASC is an organization basically loosely defined as HPC Center Directors and other folks in the leadership of those sorts of organizations. We really focus on strategy and policy and issues of how do you run a center and funding opportunities and engagement with federal funding agencies, not so much on the technology or how to do this or that or the other from a technical perspective, but more so from a policy perspective. There were a couple of questions we were asked to address, so that's what I have here. The application process for CASC, this is an institutional membership. This is not an individual membership. If your institution is a member, then you're welcome to come to the meetings. We have an application process. Part of that is fill out this questionnaire, and there's a discussion period amongst the members. And then we vote the new member in. We've grown to about 89 organizations at this point. We get together for the meat of the organization happens on these Wednesday to Friday afternoon meetings in DC twice a year, loosely defined fall and spring. We meet in DC. Alexandria, very close to where NSF is. So we tend to get a lot of speakers from NSF, NIH, a couple of other agencies. We have a lunch we do at supercomputing. And mostly that and the session at PERC are, other opportunities for social, in real life networking opportunities between these leaders. And it's also a $4,000 per year institutional membership fee. Again, that's not a per person, that's for your organization. And that funding, generally speaking, goes to funding these meetings, right? Getting the hotel space and all that. And also as a salary for our executive director. And Lisa is a former lobbyist. She's no longer a registered lobbyist, but she has an awful lot of connections within DC and really helps us from that perspective. To bring this in from the CARC ecosystem workshop, what we are looking for in terms of all of the other organizations that exist within this ecosystem is professionalization. We've heard that on previous speakers, and really developing the next generation of leaders. So somebody else is going to have to step in further down the road. We want to keep that pipeline going. Not only a pipeline on the technical side, which I'll get into in a minute, but also on the leadership side. So that's what we're looking for as part of where we fit in amongst all these other organizations. All right, so there's that. Now we'll switch hats and talk about LCI. So Linux Clusters Institute, there's an S in the URL, just in case. This is completely separate from CAST, but something else that I'm involved in. LCI is really about workforce development at the technical level, right? Taking that talented Linux system administrator who has gotten a HPC cluster dropped into the lab and says, here, deal with this, and teaching them how to deal with that, right? So right now we run 2 workshops a year. One is introductory, one as intermediate level content. And these are week-long workshops. So you come on site, there's a lecture component, there's a discussion component, there's a strong component of hands-on. So in the introductory workshop, for instance, people start off with a handful of VMs and deploy an operating system, deploy a scheduler, turn it from bare metal into, running Hello World through a scheduler, and then some other topics about how do you deal with things that we would typically see in an HPC environment. Right? The intermediate takes that a little step further, goes into a little bit deeper dive on things like InfiniBand and networking and storage and schedulers and things like that. Again, with a very strong component of lab where people get hands-on and actually do things and implement the things that we're talking about in the lecture periods. Our partner this year on the resources side is Microsoft. So all this is being done on Microsoft Azure. Let's see. We have IS. The intermediate workshop just wrapped up a couple of weeks ago, thanks to Henry. I assume he's in the room somewhere over there, who chaired that workshop. We have the intro workshop coming up in August, and that one is at Rutgers. Registration is open for that. Plug, right? Okay. So same questions for LCI. As a student, register for the workshop. If you want to be an instructor, you can contact Leslie. She's great. She's awesome. And she'll put you in touch with the appropriate folks. I think I mentioned this, primarily systems-facing people. and with the occasional international participants. From a cost perspective, we try and be pretty lean. So generally your travel cost will be more than the cost for the workshop, right? So for about $600 plus or minus, you get a week-long worth of training, and that includes breakfast and lunch. So with that, I think we have a few minutes left in the session for questions. So I'll hand it back to our on-site moderators, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Neil.
Thanks.
All right, now it's time. So how many people are in at least one of these groups? Raise your hand. So we have people without hands up. So to get you enrolled into one of these groups, lazy hand syndrome. Questions for our panel. We have data in-house, we have the rest online, and we should be able to see them when they speak, right? So, right, because now it's on when your voice talks, you can hear them. So let's have some questions. What do you guys want to know?
I wanted to point out that on the researcher facing in park, Bob Freeman, who was just talking, and Claire, who's talked yesterday, are the coordinators of that track. So if you want to hang out more with them.
So how do you get the institution signed to CARC?
What?
How do you get the institution to
So
yeah, let me repeat the question. How do you get the
motivate
institution?
them, get them understand the value of this? It's over $4,000.
So that's CASC.
Yes.
Yes.
How do you get, so the question is, how do you convince your institution to join CASC?
Okay, so I'll take that one, of course. Some good, well, obviously that'll depend on your local institution, right? What arguments will resonate. Obviously, first you need to figure out who would be going, right? Generally, that's one or two people that come to these meetings, and convince them that that's something that they want to do. Okay, assuming you got that, then you got to find somebody to pay for it, of course. What most of our folks find valuable is the ability to have conversations and network with other leaders of these research computing organizations. And you know, for me personally, when I joined, as a for instance, we were in the early stages of building our center. So I was able to talk with a whole bunch of people who had been doing this already and ask them questions like, well, what kind of policy do you have for this? And how do you do that? And what are the pitfalls about going down this approach, right? So being able to do that with a community that's focused on the policy aspects of running a center was incredibly valuable.
Let me add in too. So CASC has their own working groups, and the output of those working groups are only available to CASC members.
Right.
Working group.
Yeah, working groups that do different policy implementations, things that are they're working on as a director group. And if you want access to that information, you have to be present at
Right. So one of our working groups that's most active at the moment is one on regulated data. So for all those folks that are having to deal with, you know, like PII and HIPAA data, or this new push for COI data in NIST 800-171, you know, classified or not classified but sensitive kind of data. We have a working group that is, you know, gathering best practices on how to do that.
More questions. So I think Neil's are the only two that have any sort of cost associated with them. And most of them did a pretty good job of going over how to join. There's links in the slides, which will be on Henry's website for this workshop. Members, pretty good mix between the members, who they are, where they are. Time, effort, that's a hard one to pin down, because it depends on how much you want to be involved, I guess. Dana, how much does exceed and
Well, like for the
Or-
champions, you know, if you want to do the least amount of work, then all you need is an email filter to get it out of your inbox.
Okay. The same one you use for Henry's emails. It's fine. You just put them on the same. It goes
Nobody ever
to.
filters my email. That one gets overheated.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
But there's opportunities to join in doing things up to however much you want. I think for most of these things, right?
Yes. Yes. This is as
Carpentry,
far.
You can join the discuss list. Park, you can join just the email list. And other than email, right? You could input that work, and then when there's something you care about, you can participate more. So.
All right. So more questions. What else do you have at the panels?
I'm still not clear. So Dana, like, you know, every group, I have Chris, is super smart. So people like him, he knows a lot of stuff. So when the organization joins, the director will ask that, why you want to join, what benefit you're gonna get. So this cast, is it designed for researchers, you know, people with a PhD system? I mean, I'm trying to find out.
So CASC, right? So there's CASC, there's CARC, there's Champions, there's Software Carpentry, there's Sandra's Alphabet Soup, right? So CASC is the stakeholder facing group, right? So HPC directors. So when I was at Oklahoma State, I was the one that went to the CASC meeting. Henry was the one that goes to the CASC meeting, right? You might take somebody with you from your team. And it's the exclusive bunch of 89 Neil.
89.
And so that is very much, you know, a small group. You can look at the website and see who the members or organizations are. So I was able to join when I was at OSU, right? I had the same problem of going to my boss, the vice president for research, and asking, can I spend $4,000 a year to go hang out with these really cool friends of mine? And for a long time, it was like, no money, no money, no money. And actually, I think what I did is when I joined the Exceed grant and I was bringing in part of my salary money, I was like, my two requests were, you know, one of them was to join CASC. And one of the things I did is I brought the brochure and I showed them the list of other institutions, right? And you know, they were all fancy institutions, R1s and stuff. And so my boss was like, oh, we want to hang out with those institutions. And that was somewhat of the selling point, right? Because you have, a lot of times your institutional administration cares about what both your peer institutions are doing and what your aspirational institutions are doing. So being able to, like in the stakeholder facing with CASC, you know, you want to be able to know what's going on so that you're not going to be behind. You want to be competitive so that your institution can, you know, retain, recruit, and what's the other R? Something, faculty and students, right? And so that's what they care about. So you frame all your arguments around that.
So it's a director level.
That's called the Directors Club of HPC. That's the CASC. CARC is the overarching.
Not our overarching.
Well,
CARC is serving the broader community.
To bring together all these organizations.
And finding gaps that we can help fill. And
Then Anita has raised her hand in the.
Who's our Zoom moderator? Who's watching Zoom?
Oh, sorry, I just raised my hand because I think I forgot to take it down. You had said something about who belonged to these organizations. My bad.
Oh, that's good. Questions? Yes.
I had a question for Dana based on one slide that she had, and she skipped pretty quickly because of time limitations. So it was regarding your stakeholder and value proposition document. So it's still in the draft phase, right?
Well, no, so in our notes, it's somebody's supposed to change it to draft to final, and they just haven't done it yet.
Okay, so it's something that has already been decided. How did you all go about talking this document through and coming up with this document? And are there plans for future revisions or expanding?
Yeah, so.
This is the stakeholder survey?
Yeah. No, it's the stakeholder and value proposition document. Here, I can dig it up. So yeah, so the idea is, and we went round and round about how to do this, is it was originally committee written and went through like a bunch of people looking at it and a bunch of people going and talking to their folks to see what they thought. What we'd like to have these documents be is kind of like how open source software is done, right? And so we want to have versions, but we also want it to be, you know, it'd be lovely. We thought about putting it on GitHub, right? Just so people could do pull requests and stuff like that. And we may still yet do that, but the group that's working on those kinds of things, the stakeholder stuff, are not necessarily the same people who are like, yeah, GitHub, right? So if anybody actually knows of a place that could do like version control and document releases for these kinds of documents, it would be fantastic, because we have several of these kinds of things that we want to be living documents, but we also want to have stable releases. And they are all here. So here's the CARC website. Your thing's upside down. Products is where we've put these two documents. I guess it's all kind of work in progress. The vast majority of the committees I mentioned are all volunteers. That people are showing up and doing this stuff just because they're passionate about helping the community. And so one of the big things is trying to figure out how do we bring in fresh energy, because every single one of us, occasionally you have a free hour where you can work on a passion project, right? But then there's times in your life where you don't have that. And so we need as a community to kind of develop ways where we can float into projects and float out without any kind of judgments or shame or anything like that, and have easy points of entry and exit and back in and out. Because I think as busy as we all are, that's the only thing we're going to collectively accomplish stuff. Yeah, something like that.
More questions?
I have
Yes.
another questions to the whole community here. So I hear a lot of things about the data science, and there are many programs at my university is free. And so I'm thinking, being a HPC engineer, what is the relationship between data science and HPC? How much I can benefit? Is it something that I can pursue?
So the question is, what is the relationship between data science and HPC with a lot of the programs at your universities that they already offer?
Yeah, so I can take advantage of it. Is it something that I can pursue?
Oh.
So there's a value in there?
Okay, so I think this is a channeling Henry answer, but data science is much better because people pay a lot of money for it, right? And that's why we see data science isn't having any sort of problem with professionalization. There's data science programs that I don't know how many universities, oftentimes in the business schools.
All of them, and all business schools, because it is so business centered, because they think, well, let's start to harness some of the data. And if you look for jobs at any of the sites, you can have data scientists everywhere. It's a big push. There's not a lot of HPC research scientists, but research science for HPC is different. Remember the separation between researching HPC or helping researchers in HPC.
But there is, the Venn diagram certainly overlaps. So like for CARC, the data-facing track that is just had its very first meeting on Tuesday, the two people that are running that actually, they're the ones that made us make their own data-facing page, because they're reaching much further than the usual suspects in the campus research computing community. So there's people showing up in those data-facing tracks that aren't the same, right? So it's kind of cool because they have their communities, and we kind of reached out and found people that are data science focused.
And they will use HPC. They could benefit from HPC, but a lot of them are just trying to start getting their heads around what can't fit in an Excel spreadsheet. How do I look at these numbers when it doesn't fit in my Excel 65,000 line limit? What do I do? So I'll tell you a story about, I had an email a few weeks ago, and I asked for someone to give me the first just 100 lines of a CSV file. He told me, I tried, but I couldn't load it was, I think, it was a like 150 gigabyte file. I was like, well, it wouldn't load in my Excel file, so I could cut and copy and paste the first 100 lines. I'm like, really? So that's the kind of questions. Like, how do I do more with what I can't fit in my click and paste area of what I know?
I mean, it's free. Taking 1 or 2 courses, work in the university in 1 day, in a couple of years, 2 years, you can finish it. So that, I was thinking I wasted enough time. We keep taking courses free.
More questions. Questions for the panel. Questions for the remote panelists. Anything you guys want to know? We'll have links. We'll have ways to join. I think so which ones will pay you to do things? I know, so Bob's group, the carpentries, if you become an instructor, will pay for your travel to go and teach courses. They don't pay for your time, but they'll pay for at least your travel to and food while you're there if you want to teach the carpentry instructor.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yeah, so with Champions, we do subsidize perk registration and that. Of course, if you look at the longer view, I started as a volunteer in the volunteer leadership team, and then I got hired, so I got paid eventually.
Yeah, just a note on the carpentries too is there's if you want to see the U.S. on someone else's dime, if you become a certified instructor, there is a call out to for workshops that institutions will request the carpentries organize the workshops for them, and so they'll put out a call to trained instructors. And so as Dan was saying, that you can then travel to another city to teach a workshop, and the travel costs will be paid for by the hosting institution. So I want to go to New York, Chicago, LA.
I think I heard about people teaching carpentry classes and then later getting a job at that institution they taught at.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Sandra.
Sorry. Yeah, with the institutes, as I said, you can get the services for free. So, for example, training or developer time. So you don't get directly money, but you get valuable resources you can use, and you can. If you have students who are interested in internships, that could work out for them. They get money if they do the internships, at least for the accommodation and things like that. Yeah.
Hi, this is Anita Schwartz. I have a question.
Yes.
So I guess this is specifically for Bob. I was just wondering, the HPC carpentry and actually the carpentries, the rest of the carpentries let you discuss, like the data, the library, and the software. Why is the HPC separate? Is that still in development and will be evaluated and moved in at some point? Can you just talk a little bit about that to the group?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, library carpentries was also like that. I think they had their own separate set of lesson materials, part of the lesson and curriculum roadmaps. HPC carpentry is very early in that. We're still trying to get the materials together. There's the carpentries put out a document to explain how to get materials into the public domain, or sort of the community domain. I think we had some growing pains with the genomics lessons as a part of the data carpentry. And so Tracy and the carpentries group came up with a plan to how we can put lesson materials and bundles of lesson materials that would become a new carpentry onto a roadmap that are community supported, and also have buy-in and investment and reinvestment from the community. So right now there isn't an official HPC carpentry. It's now just sort of an unofficial group. We do have I know Anita, looks like she put it, or you put it there in the website. We're in the process of actually trying to get that on track. And once we come out with tested materials, then we'll probably become a full-fledged carpentries organization. They are, because they are a nonprofit, they are a little concerned, is I think a nice way to put it, about the use of the carpentries brand name. I think they're trying to be very careful about that, so that's not used and co-opted in a cavalier manner. And I think that's part of the reason around the lesson and lesson roadmap as well.
Thank you. And I guess as a follow-up question, because I know that a number of people have said that they've used the HPC carpentries, and I kind of reached out at one point because I think it would be valuable for institutions to capitalize on something that already exists instead of, you know, reinventing the wheel. But they were actually really good, and I think it's important for people to know this, that you can fork a set that would just be, say, for your specific clusters. If they're talking about general things with HPC, and then you want to say, oh, here's for University of Delaware, like how to log on to their clusters or apply the concepts you learn that are specific. And I just wondered if anybody else has actually done something like that. You know, we've talked about it. We haven't moved in that direction, but I was just wondering if anybody had any experience.
Let me just go ahead. Let other people chime in, and then I'll make a closing comment on that.
Does anyone in the room have a experience with the carpentry, forking it, or having your own university resources?
Started, but haven't finished.
Okay. Dirk?
I mean, we sort of forked their template for the cyber ambassadors and we're trying that out.
Oh, well, good.
We designed a lot of our curriculum
Around the carpentry model. Okay.
I'll just
James?
say, I know Mark Loffersweiler is going to be here tomorrow, but if you get a chance to talk to them, they've done some really cool things, tying together some of the carpentry stuff, the templates, along with the open science framework, and really neat what they've done.
And that's for library carpentry or just for OU?
But actually, they're sharing all of that, and I'm just saying, it's along these lines. I know he's not here, but I really like what they're doing with that. They're making it available.
Okay. So tune in tomorrow.
Sorry, it's hard to hear what the comments were. Could you summarize the people or the organizations that have done?
So the library at the University of Oklahoma, tomorrow, what time is his talk? What time will Mark be here?
It's not on that, but
He'll be here.
So forgive me. So he actually had a family emergency.
Oh.
So he's had to swap out, and we have successfully recruited additional panelists, and we have promoted one of the panelists to be moderator. So the panel tomorrow will be very, very successful, and also has the benefit of being extremely fresh.
So the other two comments were from Michigan State, Dirk Colbury, who is a cyber ambassador PI, has used the framework from Carpentries for his lessons. And then Tennessee Tech has started their own. HPC has not finished their lessons. Have you used any of the carpentry? So he's still working on his.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, let me add to that. Just two quick comments. One is I think that's an excellent point that you bring up about forking the materials. When Carpentry says that the materials are freely available to use, by all means, you know, if you want to fork the materials, customize them for your setup. Always think about contributing back if you make improvements, and that's what this is all about with the maintainers and the contributions. I know I've actually taken the Git materials and actually repurpose them for a Git GUI, Git Kraken. For business and social science researchers, the command line is way too scary. And so we now have version control using a GUI. The other thing I will mention, the last comment is on the HPC specific materials. That's one of the challenges for the HPC carpentry approach, is that everybody has their own scheduler, their own setup. We're actually abstracting the materials, so we're teaching, especially the intro to cluster computing materials, is the cluster and HPC concepts, and we're going to actually set it up so that you can put in HPC specific things for your site or your scheduler that will be part of your fork when you run the workshop. So there's a very little extra investment involved because we're going to make the materials usable for all most of the common schedulers like PBS, Torx, SunGrid Engine, Slurm, and LSF. But there will be some customizations there to make it more useful for your own site.
Yeah, that will be an instructor training lesson for Git fork for dropping your own modules.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well, you can't smell in TV land, but our lunch has been here for a few minutes and everyone's stomachs are growling. So let's thank the panelists.
One comment before unofficial, but I feel pretty confident. I haven't finally run and verified everything, but I'm confident that we just broke the record during this session for the number of attendees at a virtual residency workshop. So I will add that every year we have broken the record. This year, believe me, it keeps us rather than explodes us.
How do you do that? Do you say, I'll stop sending you email about this if you show up?
That never ever works, so I do the opposite. Yeah.
All right, thank you guys. And stop recording, please, so we can have some
Well,
lunch.
we're trying to beat 216. I think we're about 220.
Who was number 220? They get like balloons and like confetti and send them out.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Got nothing. Thank you. Everyone online, enjoy your lunch. We are stopping recording. Horst.